Raise your hands if you're already running cloud-enabled management. Okay. Man, that's awesome. I'm proud, man. All right, so basically what we'll go through that is 0 to SIM in 60 minutes. It's just the implementation tactics for cloud-enabled management. We'll go through the why do you need it. We'll go through how easy it is to set up and configure and install and things like that. Because a lot of you already run SIM, again, let's try to make this presentation a little more dynamic, okay? Just ask questions as they come, because a lot of you are running it, and I'm sure a lot of you are probably a little more advanced than your usual customer, right? So we'll talk about introduction to cloud-enabled management, preparing for cloud-enabled management, and implementing the cloud-enabled management infrastructure, which is actually a demo that is going to be run by Brian Sheedy, okay? With that said, let's go ahead and get started. So, as many of you know, cloud-enabled management is a feature that we implemented back on the 7.5 days, okay? It's a feature that allows you to continue to keep your infrastructure much in the same way you have today, internally, on your data center, the SMP, main site servers, and then continue to manage those endpoints that move in and out of your network. And we do that via a component that we call the internet gateways, right? Small server on the DMC. As you can see here, it's a small server on the DMC. Minimal requirements, dual core CPU, I think, 100 gig space. Like right now, anybody that's setting up servers on whether it's VM or hardware, I mean, you probably, the hard drive space is not a non-event right there. We're not holding packages on the server. It's merely a communications broker, okay? Back and forward communications, handshake authentication at that point via SSL certificates, TLS 1, V1, 1.2, et cetera. And let's see, do we have, there you go. One thing that I will note for those that have not implemented, this is not a VPN replacement. Most of you know that. This is not a VPN replacement. This is client-server communication only for the purposes of management. Keeping that visibility to your endpoints, getting your inventories and things of that nature, and doing patch deployment, software deployment, things like that. It all works, like I say, through SSL certificates, basically, and I will go through the port information, all that stuff. Do we have those ports in here? No. Okay. So, from a requirements perspective, small server in your DMC, you live your infrastructure, like I say, most of the same where you have small server or servers on your DMC. I think that we're supporting up to 2016 now on those gateways. You can harden that box as to your heart's content. Okay, no IIS, no nothing. Our cloud-enabled management software installer, basically, it's a self-contained version of Apache, okay? Secure Apache. SSL is absolutely required to run this from our perspective. We can support both. We can support self-signed certificates, and we support commercial certificates, okay? The com.org, that you get the gist on that, all right? With that said, like I said, you can harden this box, SSL certificate communication, and the way it happens here is your machine is working inside of the network. Not a problem. Everything is good. You turn those devices on for HTTPS communications using TLS SSL certificates. Once you get that part done, you install the internet gateway, obviously, on your DMC. A couple of ports that are required here. Externally, on the external firewall, your standard 443 port. It's just a standard SSL port. That's it. That's the only requirement there. And then internally, on the internal leg of that firewall, you're opening port 4726, okay? 4726 is the port that the gateway is going to use to communicate with the SMP. And that can work for both the SMP and the site service. Remember, you're opening once here, right? 443, 4726 here. If you have a network department or network group that says, I got to open very specific connections to very specific service, which is most of the cases, pretty much everybody does that, then obviously you're going to have your SMP inside of the network, 4726, and you're also going to open that port out to one of your site servers or two of your site servers or however many site servers you want to implement on cloud-enabled management. Because remember, once you're in cloud and you move outside of your network, you want to have at least one site server being the guy that responds to all of those requests coming from the internet in 443, and the port gets translated to 4726. So if I'm communicating to my SMP, hey, I need to send you an inventory, good, no problem, send me an inventory. Hey, you got an inventory to run, you got a job, you got a task to run, no problem. But if you need to get a package or a task, although you can theoretically get it from the SMP, you want to offload that to a site server, okay? And that's a site server you have to basically have IAS, you have to have a certificate on that site server, you have to have that HTTPS connection profile on that server, right? So you can run SSL on it. So what happens is, once you have all of your internal environment configured properly, your DMZ, your SMP, your site servers, your certificates, everything internally working the way it should be, okay? Because that's the first thing you do. Make sure that internally you're communicating successful HTTPS. Make sure that internally you're getting HTTPS code bases. Make sure that internally you have no issues getting tasks, right, with HTTPS enabled. Once you validate that, then we move to the outside. Then you can move that client to the internet, and as soon as that client reaches the internet and it realizes that it cannot communicate directly to the SMP, and guys, this happens near real time. The user won't even know what hit him, right? Then that device goes up, goes alive, and says, I cannot communicate with my SMP. Let me look into my policies to see if I was enabled for cloud-enabled management, see if that feature is on for me, okay? And if it's so, it looks into its policies and says, okay, how many gateways do I have? Traditionally, you can work with one. We definitely recommend a minimum of 2. Definitely, every time. Because failover, load balance, and I've been saying that for years since we implemented cloud-enabled management in our solution. And a lot of people question the why too. And it's like load balance, failover. And then lately, I've been getting hit with a rush of a lot of people going, darn, my certificate's expired. What am I going to do now? Right? Or one certificate, we change one certificate, and we change it everywhere, and everything stopped communicating. Again, perfect use case, perfect scenario. If you have a certificate that is expiring on any of these gateways, for example, then process. You cannot cut communications, cold turkey, right? Take one, change your policy on the SMP, change one certificate on one gateway, let it percolate for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Then once you kind of get that sense of, okay, a lot of stuff has gone out and I changed my policy and all my clients get it, then go ahead and replace the second certificate on the second gateway, okay? Process. I had a couple of customers that did that, dead in the water, trying to figure out, why are my agents not communicating? What happened? Well, we changed certificates. Okay, how did you go about changing certificates? We just changed them. Yeah, about that. That's not going to work. All right, many questions. Go ahead.
Can we get a feature request to do a notification from the notification server or the SMP to tell us when the certs expire?
That's a good one. Yeah, I'm serious. That's a very good one. We talked about this before, because right now what happens is a lot of the calls that we've been getting, not a lot, but some of the calls that we've been getting, yeah, my certificate's expired. Okay, but you should know when your certificate's expired. But a nice feature request was made about the SMP checking the validity and the expiration date of those certificates so that we could possibly notify you within the SMP console, pop up and say your certificates are about to expire in a month or something like that. So that's a good one. Well, I'll make sure to add it. Thank you. Yes, sir.
When you're talking about changing the certs, you're talking about the actual certs on the gateways themselves?
The actual certs on the gateways themselves, yes.
Do I remember right, those are self-signed or?
Either it doesn't matter whether they're self-signed or commercial. It really doesn't matter. I mean, a certificate is a certificate. It has to have an expiration time, right? Oh, I already got that look. I already got that look, which means I need to repeat your question. So a certificate is a certificate. They have an expiration date, whether it's self-signed, commercial, PKI, they all have an expiration date. And I always tell people that I deal with every day, look at that date, create you a reminder in Outlook or something, a month ahead or 2 months ahead. It's like your certificates are about to expire. Go ahead and start doing something about it. But that's why I like about that feature request is maybe we can do some reading internally because we already have that connection and pop a message up on the screen. So that's a good one. Okay? Any other questions so far? Going once, going twice? Awesome. Again, here, the solutions are supported through this, right? From a cloud-enabled management, we support most of the stuff, most of the features within ITMS, full software hardware inventory, full patch management, software management, including application metering. Tasks are supported, but remember, due to the nature of the beast, the nature of connectivity is SSL. You cannot initiate an action against an endpoint because in SSL, the client always has to initiate that communication, right? It's like you go into an SCPS website. You cannot hit you back. You have to establish that communication. And there is a timeout for this, right? It's your check-in settings on your client check-in settings. So you can say 60 minutes, 90 minutes to your heart's content, right? If you want to get a little more aggressive than that, you can do that, right? But so tasks are supported, but it will pick it up on the next available interval when it has to check in, okay? Solutions that are not supported, for example, are deployment solution, I mean, imaging through SIEM. Nowadays, those images are huge, right? I mean, if you want to, right? No, I wouldn't recommend it. And monitoring solution, because you never know how aggressive somebody wants to get with monitor, right? So, enhancements. Back when we launched, it was only Windows. Nowadays, we support Windows and Mac endpoints. We got a couple customers that use it for both. It's rather scalable. Each internet gateway. So if you look back at this component, okay, let's talk about this for a second. Each internet gateway can support up to 3,000 to 3,500 concurrent connections, okay? Now mind that, 3,000 to 3,500 concurrent connections. Connections are not persistent. So if you have a client coming in and said, hey, my time check in, I need to send you an inventory, go ahead, send your inventory. Life is good, nothing else. Do I have anything for me? No, goodbye. See you later. See you in my next 60 minutes, right? So connection is not persisting. It will drop. Come in, do what it needs to do, and then it will drop, okay? We've seen environments where they went way beyond that and they had a gateway literally hit 10, 12,000 entries, and we found that by the network group because connections kept failing and lots of errors on the logs, and we're trying to figure out what's going on. And I finally said, well, let's involve the network department. Maybe they can shed some light into this problem because it kept failing, and lots of certificate errors. And I know the certificates are valid. I know the certificates are working. When the network team came online, they started looking into the thing and go, God almighty, you got like 11,000 connections going to each of these gateways. No wonder the gateway couldn't hold it anymore. And at that point, it's not even just the gateway. It's the operating system itself. And the way we notice that is because there's an error on the log, I think it's something to do with network buffer full condition. And then you search it online, and there is an actual registry key that you can change to alleviate the problem. But still, 11,000 connections to a gateway, that's a no-no. So we immediately implemented 3 additional gateways, and errors gone, right? Everything started working. And so mind your connections. And these are environments that are really heavy into SIEM. Like we have customers that run entire environments strictly on SIEM. So we're talking 20, 30,000 endpoints that we'll never touch inside a network. They're strictly working through SIEM. So again, mind that, okay? All right, let's keep going. Manage software delivery, inventory, application metering, patch management. Like I told you, basic client tasking, quick delivery, non-real time. They'll pick it up on the next available interval. Works in hierarchy as well. Yes, sir.
Are there any plans as far as the portal being available through SIEM?
Plans for the portal being available to SIEM. Yes, that's one of those features that we are working very hard on right now, trying to design it. We have a big project from a UI redesign perspective, UI UX for Altiris, finally. And one of them is self-service. We're really going to be focusing on self-service. So it's not only making the software portal available through SIEM, but also redesigning it for a better look and feel and action, and actions that you can take with it. Okay. It might end up being where, I don't know yet from a design perspective, we've talked about multiple options. One is where we basically tunnel all the traffic communication between client, server, agent, and then from an agent perspective, we just populate that website, so to speak. But you're truly not serving the website, so I want to put your mind at ease. We're not in the business of popping websites outside of your network. All the traffic is encapsulated through the agent and basically faking the portal. That's option number 1. Option number 2 is when we possibly could just build it right on the UI, on the agent UI context. So think about it as a software advertisement catalog type UI, right? Which is not a website, it's just on the agent context, right click, boom, here are your software advertised requests. So we're evaluating the two right now, okay? But again, since we're working more towards self-service mechanism, that might end up being an actual portal through SIM, because there are additional things that we want to add to that, password resets and things like that, okay? Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Again, connectivity. Think about this for a second, right? If you're in the LAN or you're in VPN, SIM is inactive. So once you turn SIM on and you hit a couple of devices with the SIM policy, because you have to target agents with this new policy, you'll see the agent menu change and say, I am now SIM enabled, but inactive. Because I know I can't do SIM, but I'm inside of the network, so I'm fine now, right? If the client is on VPN, same thing, is inside of the network, right, wrong, or indifferent. So SIM is enabled, but inactive. It's only when that agent goes out to the internet that this basically wakes up and says, now, okay, I can now not connect to my SMP directly. I'm gonna go into SIM mode. And you will see the icon switch with the little cloud next to it. If you look at the actual agent, there's a little cloud next to your icon on the agent, okay? All right, again, here's your icons. Here's what it looks like when the semantic management agent has been installed, is on LAN or VPN connection, or is not CEM enabled. That's the way it looks. And then again, you get your SMA immediately when it goes into SIM mode. It'll let you know that it's on SIM mode. If it is internal, I don't know if we have that screenshot or not here, but if it is internal and your HTTPS internal, it will actually show you a little lock on the agent as well, if it is communicating through HTTPS, okay? Supported OS requirements. Basically, from a semantic management agent perspective, non-SAM, Windows, Unix, Linux, Mac, etc. For cloud-enabled management, Windows or Mac only support for both of them. And then from an internet gateway perspective, again, low requirements. They're really low requirements, guys. Windows Server 2008 R2 SP1 or Windows Server 2012. Now we're supporting up to 2016. R2 can be physical or virtual. It doesn't really matter. I mean, like I say, this box is merely a communications broker. It doesn't require a lot of storage because we're not holding packages in it. 8 gigs of RAM, 40 gig hard drive. Like I said, 100 earlier is because nowadays when you're setting up a VM, when you're setting up a new server, I mean, minimal space nowadays is 100, 120 gigs, that you get. Dual core CPU, 2 NICs. It depends on your network configuration, so always run it through your network department, how you want to handle that. In a lot of cases, this 2 NIC thing is not even required anymore, right? So think about that for a minute. This is a funny one. I had this conversation yesterday. If you're running Apache and we're securing the server, why is it that you require that net on that gateway? You want to know why? Anybody has any idea why?
For the UI?
Oh, you're going to get a kick out of this. It's the installer, just for the installer. Hey, I'll be here a week, folks. All right. Oh, come on, man. Anyway, so that's why we need that. And again, theoretically speaking, if you have one gateway, a single gateway on a 35,000 endpoint environment, we can support it with a single gateway, theoretically speaking. Now, the way we did that math, and again, don't quote me on this, just completely forget that I say this, but back in the 7.1 days when we were working on the design for this thing, when we started talking about numbers, at the time, in a 35,000 endpoint environment, 6,000 to 9,000 will be mobile devices, laptops, and out of that, we did like 30-some%. I can't remember the math anymore, but it's like 30% at any given point in time would be on the internet, connecting through SIM, so that came out to, we could theoretically support up to an environment of 35,000 devices or larger with a single gateway. But again, if you can avoid it, avoid it. Just have a minimum of 2 for load balance and failover capabilities. Yes, sir.
So we've been running CEM for a long time, but we've always done it at one gateway. So you convinced me to do 2. The question in my head on architecture, when we add a second one, is there a new CEM, a new gateway name, or do we just put it in the same DNS like a round robin?
Amazing question. I'm glad you brought it up because I don't. Is that here, the F5 stuff?
No, just the theory.
Okay. All right. So,
Wanna repeat it?
God, look at that look, man. Whew. I'm gonna start hiding from you. That just gives me the creeps. So he's been running only one gateway on. They've been running SIM for a long time, and they're running only one gateway. So if you run two gateways, if you add an additional gateway or two more, do you have to publish 3 additional names with 3 additional IPs? The question, the answer to that question, it depends, right? Yes, but you can avoid it, right? So if you are in an environment that your network department uses an F5 or a NetScaler on the front of it, then you can, in theory, not in theory, in practice, because I got many customers. We just did that for 2 customers. Put the F5 up front, 1 name, 1 IP. Now, in this use case, you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 gateways. I got a customer that's got 18 gateways because it's a rather large environment. Publish 1 IP, 1 name, 1 FQDN name, and then you will be using the same certificate. Think about that for a second, right? Comes in, I'm looking for gateway1.symantec.com. That certificate, whether it's a commercial or self-signed, has to match that FQDN that I'm looking for in order for that handshake to occur. If it doesn't match, I'm not connecting. So if you have a commercial certificate, whether it's a wildcard or not, you'll be using that same certificate on each one of your 2, 3, 4, 18 gateways, right? Because it's looking for that name. You'll be home, not a problem. One point to note, in our documentation, we specifically call out big IP F5, okay? That's the supported, QA certified thing that we do today. But I got half of my customers using F5s, and I got the other half using NetScalers just fine, using the same guidance and recommendations. The one thing you have to tell your networking team, when you create me that VIP, when you create me that profile on the F5 or the NetScaler, do not turn on HTTP responders. Because at that point, it's trying to do SSL offloading. So at that point, your F5 will be trying to, I'm going to handle this SSL communication. And everything starts failing, right? It won't go through because the handshake has to occur at the gateway. So let that traffic pass through. Basically, you're doing a glorified NAT. Come in, 443 out the other end. Don't touch SSL. Don't snoop on the SSL. Let that thing go through to the gateway so that we can do our handshake authentication and pass that traffic through, okay? So HTTP responders, no, okay?
One more.
Sure.
So the other thing to remember too in that configuration is that if one of the gateways gets compromised, they all do. Remember that, right? So that was one of our, basically a little bit of advice, right? In that situation, it makes sense.
It sounds like the strategy of changing certs one at a time wouldn't work in that scenario either, right?
Yeah, in that scenario, exactly. But, well, it kind of does too. I mean, you have 2 profiles. You will have to create an additional profile under the same management and put the 2 thumbprints in it. I got to figure that out. I think we got to test that out, but I think that's how we did it. No, yeah, because that's how Wendy's does it. So, okay. Yeah, so yes, you can. Okay. All right, what do we got here? Supported as requirements. Again, your Mac, your Windows. Let's see. And this is not working, Brian.
I got to do my Apple updates. 1 month.
This people, man, I'm telling you. All right, guys, so let's move because we got an actual demo for you here that Brian is going to be running on how to set it up. Again, at least 2 gateways. Agents can switch this is funny. Agents can and will switch between gateways on any given point in time, even during the same download. This is actually fun to watch. An agent can connect to a gateway. Seriously, an agent can connect to a gateway, and this is cool the way that it was developed. And it will be downloading a patching, or it will be sending inventory. It will be requesting something, and depending on the load of that gateway, the SMP might just immediately go, nope, now switch over here. So it's playing like chairs, musical chairs. It's like change over here, switch over here, and the agent will just go, download continues. Everything continues exactly where it left off. It doesn't interrupt that communication, okay? So agent scan, and we'll switch between gateways depending on the load of that gateway. Again, we do our own load balancing automatically. All gateways are treated equal, automatic failover. I told you guys that. Populate that. A single gateway can support a single SMP, okay? Multiple gateways can support a single SMP. One gateway can support multiple SMPs and multiple site servers. And should I explain the last one? Right? It's highly scalable. Like I said, if you look at our gateway communication manager, you can add as many SMPs and site servers. The gateway itself is not directly related to either one of them. It's just a communications broker. Now, the one thing that is different on a gateway communication is there is a setting when you're adding an SMP that allows you to forward its logs, its own logs to an SMP for reporting purposes. So you can actually report on your gateway's health status and communication and load and things like that, but you will only do that to one of the SMPs. But multiple gateways can support multiple SMP profiles. That make sense? Any questions about that? So a few heads going like, what? No questions? Okay. All ready? Preparing for cloud-enabled management. I'll try to accelerate this, Brian, I promise you. All right. So as I said before, configure your notification server first. So the first thing you want to do is making sure that you have an SSL certificate for your notification server. You can be self-signed, you can do PKI, you can do commercial. In my book, I've been working with certificates for a long, long, long time, many years. In my book, Silver Bullet, PKI. If you have your own PKI infrastructure, use it. Forget self-sign, forget commercial at that point. PKI is your best bet right there because your agents trust it, your Active Directory devices trust it already. You're golden there, right? Use the PKI for the SMP, use the PKI for the site servers that are going to participate in HTTPS communications, okay? Install that HTTPS, basically profile on the SMP itself. Then you will go to cloud-enabled management. So basically you go settings, notification server settings, cloud-enabled management, and then you need to start working on your SIEM policies. But before you work on the SIEM policies, you actually have to enable the CEM agent site, which is the one that creates a different profile within IIS, and it creates you so you have the regular default Altiris profile, and then it will create you an agent site for SIEM, right? So you have your regular bindings for HTTP, HTTPS on 443, and then you will have the agent site working on 4726. Mind you, those are the defaults, the standards, the ports that we use. You can change them if you want to. We have customers that have changed it due to requirements from their network teams and security teams, okay? So you can do that, okay? After that, basically you will download the, once you have everything validated and your notification server is working in HTTPS and your clients start communicating HTTPS successfully, right? That's the first thing I always say. Make sure your clients can communicate HTTPS successfully with the SMP before you even try any of this, right? Once the clients communicate with HTTPS, then you'll come in here, create the second site, 4726, download the Internet Gateway component, take that package from here, take it over to the gateway, install the package on the gateway, configure the gateway, add the certificates to the gateway, and then you're going to copy the thumbprint on that certificate per gateway, and then you're going to bring it and then create your profiles, okay? Then you create your gateway profiles where you said, okay, add a gateway, and then you will add the name of the gateway here. Remember, this is something that I can see every single time that I have a customer. I've been trying to set up this stuff, it's just not working. I'm like, I know it works. A lot of people, when you give them the option to put the gateway name right here, they're using their internal FQDN. Gateway1.global.corp.blah, right? It's like, no. The name we're asking you here for is your FQDN that got registered on the internet, okay? The gateway1.symantec.com, right? Because that's basically what you're telling your clients here in this policy is if you happen to be outside in the world, this is how you come home, okay? So that's the name that brings it home, like .com, the .net, the .org. And then your standard port 443, that's how they get through the external firewall. And if you change it, then you have to change it here. And then the thumbprint of that certificate, because that's what tells the client, this is the thumbprint of the certificate you're looking for in order to do your handshake authentication. If there is a mismatch there, it won't go through, okay? So no fat fingering here. Like I said, then create and configure your site servers to communicate in HTTPS as well, using, again, PKI is the golden nugget there, or commercial. Self-sign works as well, but again, self-sign, then you have to do the whole push methodology to get them added to the Trusted Root Certification Authority of your clients, which now in 8.0 and 8.1, we're handling that for you actually as well. Okay? Keep moving fast here. Once you configure your first site servers and your notification servers and your gateways and everything is up and running, then by default, you want to come to your site server management under internet sites. Just go ahead and basically under internet sites, just assign your main site server to the internet sites, because basically this works as a catch-all. You got default internet site, right? Which is, you know, for some reason we got an APJ here on the call, but imagine this wasn't here for a minute. You go to internet sites, and at the very root of that, you put your one site server or two that are going to be your catch-all. Anything coming from SIM, anything coming from the internet that requests any packages, this is the site server that gets assigned to them, unless you define an internet site. So let's say that I have a remote office, and I've spoken about this before. You got a remote office somewhere that 5, 10 devices, or however many, and that site is not part of your MPLS cloud, right? Everybody VPNs in from that side. So think about it as an autonomous sub, right, for your corporation. They're on their own, and they connect through VPN. You don't want, you know, that same package coming down there 10, 20 times, right? You want it to come down once. So you put a site server on that location at that point. Once you put a site server on that location, then you come in here, and that site server will communicate through SIM too. You download the SIM package, which is an additional thing we can do, install it on that server. That server will be communicating through SIM regularly, like another client, to the SMP. And at that point, you come in here and you define a site, and you make that server now a site server on an internet site. Once you define that site, you say site number 1 or APJ site. Your site server is this, and these are the endpoints on that site. At that point, they get that policy, and they come to the SMP, and instead of going to your default site server on the corporate side, they will recognize, I'm a member of a site, I got a site server local, I need a package. At that point, it will hold back and let the site server do its thing. It'll come, download the package, and then everybody pulls locally from that guy, okay? Questions about that? Okay, great. Ready? There you go. I just said I already told you that. Perfect. Make sure that the internet site is properly configured, as I told you. Add your site servers there. That's fine. And now, before I transition it over, any additional questions? We can have a Q&A at the end, but any additional questions so far? Good. Big round of applause for Mr. Brian Sheedy. He's coming in.
For me? What about you?
No, not me. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Test, test. All right. Okay, so this is going to show that if you have everything planned, you did those 4 steps that we just talked about, it's not that hard to do this. Okay, so if you have your certificates ready, if you know exactly what your internet gateway name is, and you've got it all set up and ready to go, and you've got the base OS sitting on your internet gateway, you could probably do this in 10 to 15 minutes. I know it sounds, yeah, it's so fast, it's amazing, but really, when it comes down to it, it is only a few steps once you have everything in place. Okay, so we're going to start off. What we've got here is the SMP, of course. Okay, I have everything in my pocket ready to go, and the first thing I'm going to do is go in and create the internet site, or sorry, the internet gateway site here. Okay, so it's right here in the bottom, Cloud Enabled Management. Okay, so like we showed in that diagram, we have 2 different web services, or 2 websites. One is for agents, the console, and all the other stuff, and the other one is for strictly SIM communications. So what we're doing is we'll be setting that up here. Okay, so here's our Cloud Enabled Management IS website. And what we do is we enable it. Now for a self-signed, if you're using self-signed in this case, it's pretty easy. You just press the button and you create it. But here is where you would import your certificates if you need to in this format. So we've got PFX, I believe. Okay, so if you can get it in PFX format, you can import it through here. So whatever prepared certificate you have, you can import it straight from this point. But in our case, we're just going to create a self-sign for this site. All right, so what we do is we just say make sure the name is right, the way we want to call it. You can change it any way you want. If you want to take the standard port 4726 and change that, you certainly can. Just remember in other parts of your configuration, it'll have to be that same port you defined. And of course, the FQDN for the notification server. All right, so you save changes. All right, and it's saying, hey, if you press OK right now, you're not going to be able to change it unless you go and understand how to do IAS and change a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, so it sits here and it'll create it. So just wait a few seconds. Now in the past, if you have version 7.6 and you're trying this out and so on, just know that this time, the amount of time this takes is dependent on how many packages you have. Okay, so if you have many, many, many packages, it might take a while, but 8.0 and 8.1, no problem. It takes about this long. Okay, so our site is created now. Right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to go into my Cloud Enabled Management setup. Now, even if you haven't read the manual, like some of us do, all of the instructions are clearly stated right here. Do the 4 steps we showed in the last slide deck, configure the environment, configure the Cloud Enabled Management agent website, which I just did, get that internet gateway installed, and then configure your Cloud Enabled Management policy so that they can receive the OK to become SEM-enabled. Okay, so the first step we'll do is download the Gateway Internet installation package, right? And I'm going to do a save as. Now, obviously, in the real world, you're going to have this internet gateway sitting on DMZ somewhere. You're going to have to use some secure method of getting the file over. But because this is VM, you know what that means. I can cheat. And I can basically say, all right, I want you to save this file over. Let's see here. Okay, let me just write it out. Okay, let's just get my right name. So it's W2K. My mouse is slipping. All right, so I just saved it to the desktop of my internet gateway, which is W2K12-1. Oh, actually put it right on the C drive. Here we go. All right, so it's just MSI installer. We double click it. All right, so again, like I suggested, make sure you get this through a secure method, get it onto the internet gateway. Very simple install. It's pretty much next. Where do you want to put it? Okay, and then install it. So we're just installing the actual program. This is the part that needs .NET 4.51, just the installer, okay? So I'm asking it, start the gateway manager, so allow me to go into the management part of it. And what you have to do is configure your IPs first, right? So you can use a specific one if you need to, or all available. Okay, we go next. You can turn on FIPS if you want. If you're in a secure environment and you require FIPS compliance and so on, you can enable it here. Okay, in our case, we don't need it. Okay, and then we generate the certificate. Okay, so this is going to be Symantec. So this is the self-signed. Okay, so if you want to use a self-signed, you're allowed to. This is where you configure your information. If you're using other types of certificates for this site, just remember this step here is absolutely required, even if you're using a third party or PKI or something else, because it has to generate the self-signed before you can actually add the other certificate. Okay, it's just a step that you have to do. So in this case, let's get this going. Okay, so this is Symantec.
There's an option down there to import. You're saying you shouldn't do that?
Oh my gosh. So new in 8.1, we've added a radio button that I didn't know. Okay, darn. Okay, so yes, I apologize. you can clearly see down here that I didn't. You can add your certificate at this point. Thank you so much. That's great. All right. All right, let's get the information. Okay, so I'm in Houston. That's 22TX. My typing skills are great today. And US. All right, so got our information in, or import your third party. Go next. You can run it as a specific service if you need to. In this case, I'm just going to go the local service right now. And confirm your details and press finish. Okay, so you've installed the program. You've run through the manager. Now you're going into what we call the Semantic Management Platform Internet Gateway Manager. So the Gateway Manager. This is the thumbprint you want to copy for your policy. So you're going to copy this to the clipboard, and you may go into Notepad. I know there's much more secure ways of doing this. You don't want this floating through the office on a piece of paper. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this right now, and I'm going to save it over onto my SMP. Okay. All right. And I'll go over there, SMP. I don't recommend you put it on the NS cap, but if you want to, you can. All right, so I've got that copied. I'll need that for later. We'll just get rid of that. And then continue with your implementation. Okay, so what you can do here is you can add the server. So this is where you would add notification servers and site servers that will service through this internet gateway. Okay, so we add the server. All right, so this is SMP. Yep.
Is there any suggestions of making like this a Linux VM that we could just import? Say the whole Windows server that we now have hardened.
Right.
We're installing one piece of software that's really not Windows related.
Exactly. So the question is there any plans to make this internet gateway capable on a Linux or other operating system? Who can answer that question in here? At the moment, there isn't. There isn't a release, obviously. But I see where you're going. You're thinking, you know, it's just Apache and OpenSSL. Why isn't this on Linux? Don't know if we have anybody in the room here. Product managers? Tomas? Okay. Let's get back to that for you. Okay. All right. So example.com. All right. So this is where you would also identify the port. So if in my internet site I set it to 99999, this is where I have to put 99999. But it's using the standard port 4726. And here, this little box here is telling me I'd like to see a graphical representation of whether it's good or bad, you know, open or closed, is it having problems. If you turn this off, you don't see that reporting getting back to the notification server. Okay, all right, so I'm just gonna ignore this warning because it's really VM related. Okay, so I will have added my notification server here. Now, if I've already identified site servers that I'd like to use that are on the internal network or at a different site somewhere, I would also enter them here. Okay? All right, so it's going to authenticate. This is a good sign because it shows that we're actually connecting to it. Okay.
Does it store these credentials?
Actually, does it store the credentials locally? I don't think it would it?
For the
This is in the install of adding the notification server onto the site.
The credentials are for a couple of reasons, right? On the gateway, the credentials only get asked when you're adding a notification server. And let me explain to you why. You got the clicker here. Right, leave that window up.
Yep.
See this right here? Report enable, status report enable. When you add a notification server, we do two things. Once we validate that that FQDN is valid internally. So it's a really good process here because in a lot of environments on your DMCs, a lot of companies don't have DNS. There's no name recognition. So you gotta go edit your host file, add it in there by IP, by thing, make sure the port is open. You know, there's a whole lot of things. So we do that validation, make sure that server is a valid server. We don't do such things for the site servers, unfortunately, right? We should, but we don't do that. We simply, you type it, you enter it, it's in, right? But on the SMP, we do that validation, and by default, that status report enable is checked, and that's the one that I was telling you about does the logs forwarding to that SMP at that point. So I want to make sure that my logs get reported to the SMP, so you can do centralized reporting at the SMP level at that point, because you're actually not just being a communications broker, you're actually sending traffic through SSL and through an authenticated method. Then you have to have those credentials to the SMP. Make sense?
Cool.
Yes, sir.
So I'm in an environment where we change that password on a regular basis, but I've never gone in the gateway to update those credentials. Is it just during the install it's used, or every time it sends reports?
Yeah, when it challenges you for the credentials, that's just to establish the connection between the notification server and the internet gateway.
It doesn't
Correct.
actually do those every time it sends them.
No,
Not
at that
that I'm
point,
aware
not
of.
aware.
No.
No, not aware.
No. Okay, so you also have the ability again to add site servers if you need to, right? So you just define it as a site server, give it the name, and it'll add it. So we're pretty much done with the internet gateway. So what we've got right now is the connection between the two. Yep.
If you want a site server to serve your internet-facing clients, you have to add it here?
Yes, yeah.
So it's not only added in your sites and services, not AD sites and services,
Right.
but your site section in the console, but you add it here as well.
That's right, yeah. So the question is, do you have to add it here as well as in your site manager? So yes, if you use a site server that's managing the internal network, or a certain group of network computers internally, it would go into the standard sites area. If you also want to share it as an internet site server, you would put it in the internet site in the same area, right, in the site manager, as well as in this console here.
And additional firewall requirements, is this communicating directly to the site server?
Go ahead, sorry. Is
Yeah,
it
yeah,
communicating
I
straight
think
to
I
the site
understood the
server?
question. I barely heard it, but I think I know where he's going. So yeah, when you have a site server defined on on the SMP side for HTTPS communications and cloud-enabled management,
Sorry, I'll go back.
yeah, go back to that other screen. Yeah, if you don't define it here, you can set that setting to your heart's content. The device won't know where to go. So think about this as the post office, right? Is when I go on the internet, even if you have this site configured HTTPS and life is good, the agents are basically looking. Think about it in this order. First order of business is let me get to my gateway, because the gateway knows where I need to go. Once that I connect successfully to the gateway, do the handshake authentication, and I'm in through that, gateway1.symantec.com, then my job is done at that point where I connect it to somebody who finally knows how to route the traffic, the true traffic that I want to send, which is I need to now look for SMP1.corp.local, and the site server is .corp.local, and only this guy knows where they are. If that entry is not defined here, that client will be looking for something this guy doesn't know how to get to.
Right, so additional firewall requirements, then is there direct communication between this guy and the site server?
Exactly, and that's what I was saying earlier when I was showing you that diagram. Externally is only one port, one entry, 443. Internally, 4726 to both the SMP, 4726, or 443, you can use any either, to your site server or servers that you wanted to participate on that catch-all for all CEM package task requirements. So yes, you have to have not only the multiple firewall rules for that, but you have to add every single server you want participating on SIEM has to be defined here. Okay?
All right, so the next step, so we've got the internet gateway. It's communicating between the notification server and the internet gateway. Next thing is to create the settings. Now, if you're in an environment where you're basically, you have multiple internet gateways, but you want to multiple internet gateways, but you have a single notification server, you would enter 2 entries here. And depending on if it's F5, that would be a different story. But you go into the cloud-enabled management settings, and you add the gateway thumbprint. Okay? Now, you'll find that mine just showed up. Everything's magic. Okay? Well, it's VMware. It knows who it is. It has all the information and so on. But what's going to happen in your case is you're going to put in the FQDN of the internet gateway, its port that is going to communicate to the client. So the key thing to remember here, this name here is the name on the outside, right? Okay, the name of your certificate, etc. The 443 is what the agents communicate to the internet gateway as. Okay, and this is the thumbprint that I had copied and pasted. Okay, so I've added that thumbprint. It's the first step, of course, of the handshaking to have everything approved. And then I apply it to specific computers. Now, in some cases, you might apply it to a organizational viewing group or filters or whatever it might be. In my case, I'm just going to, for a quick demonstration, apply it to my computers here. I'll see if Win 10 is right in the thing. There we go. I'll just do a quick apply. It's not very quick now, is it? There we go. Sorry there. Have to pare this down someday. Too many agents. There we go. 10-1, bring it in. Now normally you'd make some kind of a target, of course. Okay, update my results. Okay, so what this says is anybody in this target will receive this policy, get the thumbprint, and ask to be enabling the cloud-enabled functionality. Okay, so don't forget to turn it on. Save the changes. Okay, so if the computer, in this case Win 10, is on the LAN, it's going to receive this policy, and it's going to flip the bit that basically says you have cloud-enabled functionality. Okay, so if I go into my agent, and I give it an update configuration. Now, of course, this will happen eventually. It will change to cloud-enabled management mode is enabled but inactive. So I'm on the LAN, that's what it says. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to fake a network disconnection. Okay, and it's very easy to do in demonstration. If you have to show this to anybody in your corporation. Okay, we just do the old, let's just redirect the host file. Okay, so what you'll notice, I'll save this here, is I'll zoom the page here. Okay, do you see at the bottom there? So that's the lock icon for SSL connectivity to the agent. Okay, so that's how it looks right now. And what I'll do is a quick reset of the network. Okay, and I'll do a ping to the SMP. Oh, sorry. Oh, darn. Okay. Helps if you do the right command prompt, right? Okay, just give it a few seconds there. There we go. All right, so that's good. Oh, do I have to do something else here? Yep.
It's like going through the gateway.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's so fast, like he said, that I didn't even realize that it's going through the gateway. Okay, so what we can see now, my apologies, I didn't know it was that fast. Take a look at the icon. You'll see a little cloud there, okay, for the agent. Tommaso is so right about that. All right, so let's take a look at the agent now. And now what it says is cloud-enabled management mode is active. Okay, so you can clearly see that. Right, so it switches between. And if you want to see the communications and the activity that happens, go into the logs. And eventually down here, you'll see something that says the network or the notification server could not be reached, and that it's switching to cloud-enabled management. Okay, so I can refresh that. Looks pretty clear right now. That was so fast and seamless. Wow. Okay, so that is setting the cloud-enabled management policy. The only thing else you need to know is if, for instance, you have a whole sales team out there, there's 2,000 laptops, they've never been on the LAN, they've never had an agent, they're always on the internet, but you need to deploy out to 2,000 laptops, you would come into your console and you would set what we call a cloud-enabled management installation package. Okay, so under this setup, you will see this internet or semantic management agent config. There's a link down here, and I won't go. I'll just show you the process as opposed to getting it onto another computer. So here it would say, all right, I'm going to make a package. Is it Windows or Mac? That's all you have to decide. Cloud-enabled management settings is the internet policy. That's the one I just created with the thumbprint. That's what you want to apply to this package. What organizational group would you like me to place it in after it's installed? Right? So you can make one, let's just say it's remote sales endpoints. That's where I'd like to put them. The installation name is pretty easy. SAM install 23, right? It's whatever name the executable you want to call it. When does it expire? So if you want this to be deployed in a week, but after that you want to have the safety in knowing that that package will not execute after that date, you can definitely do this. You can automate certificate distribution, which allows you to put all the certificates it needs, notification server, client certificates, everything in one package. Or if you don't feel secure about that, you can say don't, right? Let it do all the handshaking and receive them. Limit the number of registrations. So if you say only 10 because you're sending it down to a remote office, and there's only 10 machines there, on the 11th registration, it'll go, nope, sorry, can't help you. IP mask, only if in a certain subnet, run this executable. Sign using the thumbprint or a specific certificate file. This is all documented, obviously, in the cloud-enabled management guides. Okay, and of course, password protect the package, right? Give it a really strong password if you want. So you can go through the nth degree of security on this one little executable. And what you're going to do is, when it's all done, it'll generate a package. Okay, let's see if I can generate it from this. Oh, it says I forgot something, right? So I need to have a password. That's my mandatory one. Okay, I'll just give it something. All right. And it says I must put something else. Must be non-empty. Well, yes, okay, fine. It is. Very stringent password requirements. Okay. All right, so it's going to generate the package, and all you have to do is just download it. Okay? So I'm going to put this to my local machine. Okay, and what I'll do with that is take that one out of my downloads folder, and I will distribute it through whatever secure method I have. Okay, there it is right there. All right, so I have an executable. Send it out through secure email, send it out through whatever distribution method you have. When they double click on it, they basically have the ability to enter the password. That password's authenticated, and then of course it installs the same agent. It's a full semantic management agent with this SEM enabled. Okay, so from that point, those 2,000 sales laptops are all SEM enabled. They have the semantic management agent, and everything works just like they're on the inside. Okay? Any questions? That's pretty much it. If you have everything in place, you can do it in a few minutes. Yep?
Do you see any disadvantage to just making machines that maybe are on a network cloud enabled with?
Right. Do you see any disadvantages of making everybody cloud enabled? Again, remember, it's just a setting. We flip the bit to say, if you're off the network, basically go into that mode. There's no effect whatsoever. If you made everybody cloud-enabled management, it's just flipping a bit saying, hey, just in case you go to Starbucks someday and you take your office machine, I'll still be able to manage you, secure you, and so on. There's no effect on the notification server or anything like that. It's just a choice.
Can I add one
Yep.
thing? Just make sure to exclude your servers, but the only detriment is if you want to take one of your servers and make it a site server, and it's cloud enabled, good luck figuring out why you can't make it a site server.
I don't know if I.
Yeah,
Oh,
I've
I
experienced that
see.
recently. Is
Okay,
I
so
put it
the
for everybody, literally everybody.
right.
But who cares if it's on the servers?
Yep.
When I go to make a site server, I can't.
Okay, understood. Okay, so what he's explaining here is if you take a server just out of the box, it could be a virtual, it could be sitting on a site somewhere, and you make it cloud enabled. So it's got the semantic management agent on it, and you flip the bit. When you decide, well, you know what, I'd like in that Houston office, I'd like to use that server that's currently cloud enabled as a site server. When you go into the site manager and you select it, or you try and select it, it basically will tell you that you cannot make this a site server, or does it not appear?
I forget exactly. But
Right.
You can't make a site server.
Okay. It's grayed out? Yeah, okay. So in that case, what you would do is you would take that server out of the cloud-enabled policy, and then it instantly becomes a standard semantic management agent. Then go back in, do your standard site setup, and you're ready to go. And you can flip it after,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a good tip. Great.
The other disadvantage is if you don't set your sites correctly, if your machine thinks they're cloud enabled and they're inside, no deployment stuff will work. Deployment solution doesn't work over CVM.
That's right. So yeah, deployment server, and one of the big reasons for that is, think about it. What network what network company or anybody else would ever let Pixie through? Port 65, 67, 135, SMB, SIM, whatever. It's not going to work. It's not us. Don't blame us. Blame the fact that you should never do it anyway. You're not going to have Pixie communication, right? Okay. Absolutely.
I thought there was something with the network traffic itself being secure traffic, that it had a little bit of an overhead than regular 480
Right. So SSL by nature does have the overhead, right? Now, is it as bad as it used to be back in the day? Think about it. We used to think, oh man, I worked for HP a long time ago, and everybody was buying these $1,000 network cards because it did SSL offloading and all this stuff. I don't know if it's that much of a concern anymore,
No.
right? And you remember the traffic that you're talking about with SEM? It's just the handshake stuff, right? It's not package traffic and so on. That's normal traffic once you connect to the source you want.
Yeah, nowadays with the advent of technology on all the newer hardware platforms,
Yeah.
when you look at the encryption layers happening at the hardware layer, it's literally a non-event right now. It's almost the same. So you shouldn't expect that big of an overhead. If you have overhead, then you got different problems on the network, but not at all. I mean, like I said, we've had environments that are strictly SIM, thousands upon thousands. I mean, I'm talking over 20,000 endpoints, strictly working over SIM.
Right.
That's not an issue at all.
Okay. That's great. Well, you know where to find us. Tomas is the expert. You know, you can call him at night. He loves it. Everything's good. Yep. Sorry, one more question?
Yeah, one more question. So in the 8.1 upgrade documentation, release notes, I see nothing about upgrading the gateway. So when
Right.
you upgrade your platform, should you always generate a new gateway installer and upgrade that, or only, where would that recommendation come in?
Right. So where you would see it first, I think we know the process is, but where you would see it first is the cloud-enabled management white paper, okay, to show you how to do that. Now, in an 8.1 situation, because you've done quite a few of these, right, where you have 8.0, you got your gateways all configured, everything's great, you come in and you migrate, do you need to basically download the Internet Gateway installer, put it on, and run it?
So yeah, the answer to that is yes. I mean, you need to upgrade your gateway components. Now, with that said, it doesn't mean that it won't work. I mean, God, we've done 7.5 migrations all the way to 8.1, and during that transition process, we have multiple environments, even hierarchy, right? And we at the time of the upgrade, we can't leave those gateways, 1 or 2 gateways at 7.5. They'll continue to work with both. 8.1, 7.5, 7.6, 8.0. They'll continue. They're just a communications broker, and we've done this many times where we leave 1 or 2 gateways on the old so that we don't mess anything up with the older agents. We upgrade a couple of gateways to 8.1 because we want to upgrade them to 8.1. And the process, as he described, is you download the gateway manager, copy that package over to that gateway, run it. Your configuration settings will be kept. They won't go away. So always good practice to back up, though, just in case.
Yeah.
But the configuration settings continues to be there, all the list of servers, the certificates, everything. It doesn't touch any of that. It just upgrades the components.
Right.
And then at a later date, once you do all your agent redirections or whatever it is you need to do and everything is up to date and whatever you want it to be, then go ahead and upgrade the last gateway or two. Okay? Make sense?
Yeah, remember what you're upgrading. You're upgrading the Open SSL components, the Apache server, so it's definitely advised, right? You always want the latest of those components.
Yes, sir.
So every upgrade that you do for SMP, is there always going to be a correlation for gateway code upgrade? Are they always
Yeah.
going to be needing to be the same level?
Yeah, so the question is, for every SMP upgrade, is there going to be a gateway upgrade core related package? The answer is yes. So if 8.0 has its own gateway, not that it has its own gateway in terms of you must,
Yeah.
it's ideal, right? Best practice to do it. But yeah, each version has its own, set of updates and stuff for the gateway. So it's recommended that once you upgrade, just bring the gateways up to, in due time, right? To the latest and greatest.
Yeah, it's not as much of an emergency as in mismatches of task server agents and things like that.
Yes, sir.
For future reference, I would say put that in release notes and stuff because as you mentioned,
Right.
never release notes. It's not in the upgrade guide or release notes to tell you to do that.
Not even in-
I noticed
wow.
it when I went to 7.6, we were having some gateway problems, and I looked and I still had the original 7.5 internet gateway. I never thought about it because it was never in the upgrade guide or release notes. I'm like, I probably should have been upgrading this, but I didn't even know there was a new version of the gateway. That came
Yeah,
out.
it's common practice. It's just like a site server. If you upgrade to a level, it's just like another site server. Even though it's not a site, it's a component of ITMS. It's part of your infrastructure. Bring it up to the latest and greatest versions when you upgrade it. But yes, we'll make sure to note that to add it into the
Definitely.
documentation. But yes, consider it a component, just like if you would upgrade a package server or a task server when you upgrade to 8.0 or 8.1. Same thing. Just bring all your components up.
Yeah,
to
we'll
that
make a
level.
note also in the planning and implementation guide. That's kind of the main one that people have been using. And don't forget your documentation. A simple Google search is ITMS 8.1 documentation. It should be the first thing, and it's everything. But I understand to your point. It should be in the guide you would most likely use as the base, right? Yep.
For agents, I know once you said that after you upgraded all of them, you would do the internet gateway. How far back does agents work? So a 7.5 agent, workstation agent will be able to communicate.
So the question is, how far back would those components work on a gateway if you're upgrading? As I said before, CEM was only introduced with 7.5, and so far we've done multiple migrations from 7.5 to 8.1, and I can tell you it goes back to 7.5 to the original one, right? They continue to work. Again, recommendation, bring it up to, there's no reason to leave it back there, unless you're still in the middle, in between, right? In the middle of your migration, then if you have multiple gateways, leave one or two.
I'm saying the workstation, the CEM itself.
The workstations. How far back does it support it? Just from a regular ITMS perspective? The platform? Has nothing to do with SIM. From 8.1, agent communication can support back 7.5, 7.1,
Yeah,
but it's
at
just
least
basic
7.5.
agent communication. Now remember, encryption mechanisms changed between those versions, right? I think it was 7.6 where we changed our client server encryption mechanism, and in 8.0 we made FIPS compliant. So basic functionality should work between 7.5 and above. 7.1, I'm not so sure right now. But yes, you have to upgrade as fast as you can if you want to have full functionality.
And you have to leave legacy agent.
Legacy agent communication has to be on for that to work. Correct. Thank you.
Okay, so here's some links, but remember you will be getting these PDF versions. I've updated these up to the latest, and again, remember, ITMS 8.1 documentation on Google, it'll take you right there. Should be mentioned in Connect 2. And there is, of course, the Cloud-Enabled Management White Paper. That's the highly technical one that tells you all about third-party certificates and all the mass configurations you can do with it. Okay, great. Come and get us if you have any questions. Thank you.